If today, hypothetically, you're being laid off, realistically, how long do you think you're going to take to find another job? If it's going to take you 9 months, that means that you have the right skills. You just need to go out there and, go through that process of interviewing, going through all of that. If it's going to take you 6 months, it means that you not only have the right skills, but you have the right network. It means you can sort of take a shortcut and you can bypass all the actual formal interviews. So if you have a strong network, it sort of shrinks it down. If you can find a job within 3 months, that means that you not only have the right skills and the right network, you have a strong reputation.
Welcome back to another episode of Wise and Shine. It's me, Budget Babe, your host, Dawn, and I have Alex here with me today.
Hi, this is Alex Low. You can find me on socials, Alex Low Growth Mindset Coach. Today, we have two special guests with us.
And a very important topic to discuss. So before we let our guests introduce themselves, let's run into the topics first. I'm sure by now most of you have seen the news about businesses everywhere laying off their staff. Some have been questioned about it. Some have been making different reasons whatsoever. But I guess the truth is in the last few months, we've really seen a surge in the number of layoffs across the box, across different industries. So we thought it would be really good to do an episode called Why You Should Be Preparing for Your Layoff Before It Happens instead of reacting to it. And to help us navigate this topic, we have two very important and distinguished guests on set. So we'll let them introduce themselves. Shao and Nina, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Shao. I've been working in Singapore for the last 14 years and my last employer was actually Google, one of the biggest employer out there. And I was recently laid off. And I created a video on YouTube and it went viral. So I'm here to just share my experience about being laid off.
Thank you for being here, Shao.
Hi, I'm Nina. I'm the CEO and founder of Elleuminate, a coaching platform enabling women to create the career and life they love. Prior to that, I spent 20 years in the corporate world with the last 17 in recruitment and the last 8 are working in-house within organizations to help them shape their talent policies. I am here today because I've actually helped companies lay off people within the organization in the most compassionate way as possible we can. And I'm very happy here to be with Shao, someone who we've worked together in a previous organization, and to be here just sharing our stories about and experiences about how you can prepare for your layoff and what you need to take note of.
So before we dive into that, I think the one thing that we're all in alignment with would be that waiting until you're laid off would be too late. Right? We should be prepared before that, and we're going to dive into the reasons behind layoffs, which Nina will let you walk us through. And then Shao would like to hear from you on the impact, the emotional and the financial impacts. I can come in from the perspective of someone who was left behind. So I was not laid off, but I'm one of those remaining. So I dealt with certain emotions that I couldn't put a word on it until I saw someone articulate it on an article a few months ago. I was like, oh, that really explains why I felt the way I did, and which was a bit of guilt. Right? And finally, we're going to look at practical strategies that one can use to stay ahead of the curve and hopefully prevent from being the person to be laid off next, or react better and reduce the transition in between one to the next job. Yeah, so let's dive into it. Alex, anything you want to pop in on first?
I think I've had my own fair share of having to lay people off. So I was managing a hotel at some point in my career and we had to close off one department. That was a decision that the group CEO decided. And it was definitely one of the biggest learnings in my life. And, Nina, if you've done that many times, kudos to you and kudos to people who have to do that for a living, right? As GM, it was a difficult decision to make. And one of the things was that I did compassionately, or tried to be as far as possible, was to get in touch with my network and to help these people find re-employment. And up to this day, my ex-employees that I had re-employed is still with that same hotel, and she's been extremely grateful for that transition. So I think that was something good that I did along the way. Yeah, so that's my share of being helping people transit or making them redundant. Yeah. Maybe we can hear from Shao, right, on did that redundancy come as a sudden thing for you?
Yeah, can you walk us through your experience? Were there any warning signs and how was the layoff process like for you?
So logically, if you put yourself in a layoff, logically, I think you would be able to tell. because we are all business people. You would see the numbers, you could get certain hints from the business that, hey, things are starting to slow down. Companies are no longer investing or hiring, your customers are no longer spending as much. So logically, I think when the news came, myself, I speak for myself and others, it made absolute sense. But I think emotionally, that's where we don't really talk too much about, and we're not taught in schools, neither do we pick up this intentionally at our careers to how do you emotionally handle that? And of course, financially, it plays a big part as well. So the way I think about it is that logically, I could go through it. Financially, logically, I understood it, but emotionally, it was tough for me to accept that. I think a few things were at play. One is that we all grew up with our parents telling us, hey, be loyal, put your head down, do hard work, and the company will take care of you. And I guess that comes from well-intentions from our parents. Perhaps when they were working, it was a completely different time where a company really could invest in you throughout your entire career. But that sort of wiring in us, I think it's still very alive in us when we establish and reevaluate our relationship with our company. With our employer. And the second is, especially in Singapore, in this big city, working is a big part of our identity. If you think about it, most of us, we spend more times in the office than with our families. So when that gets taken away from you, there's always going to be scar tissue. So regardless of how prepared mentally you are, financially or logically, I still feel that it's a journey that I'm glad we're talking about it. So the more we talk about it, the more we can remove that stigma. And I think it's also a skill that everyone should be equipped to in today's workforce. Like in the past, you could say, oh, it's a matter of luck. You're unlucky that you got laid off. But I think with today's economy, everyone's going to get laid off at some point of time. So the more you're able to bounce back on that, that's part of the career growth that we have to decide right now.
Actually, you mentioned financially that was a hit. I think if you correct me if I'm wrong, but in February, your experience was that you were let go from your role at Google, which was about 250,000 a year. To suddenly lose that sort of income, that must have shaken up a lot of things. Can you walk us through how you dealt with that?
Sure. So firstly, I'm very grateful to be making $250,000 at Google, and that's one benefit of working in Singapore. There's really a lot of high-paying jobs that are here, but as I said earlier, these jobs tend to get more and more volatile as we progress through this economy. So I saw my layoff as a divorce. It's like a breakup. So when you're breaking up, going through a divorce, there is the emotional part where you need to deal with. But the big part of how that divorce would land, whether you can land on your 2 feet, is financially, are you set, right? Because if a couple is all together and their finances are all together, and if one side is highly dependent on the other side, that divorce will turn very ugly and very messy. In my case, my divorce was with my company, and logically, I saw those signs. So I took a few steps to, work hard, invest smart, and build out a buffer. At least financially, I'm set. I even consider myself financially free. And that was actually the first video that I posted where I said I got laid off by Google, but now I'm financially free. And that really helped me alleviate some of the pain or some of the friction so that I could focus on healing and recovering just from the emotional side and sort of bounce back on that. So I speak from a position of privilege because financially I'm all right, and I'm happy to share with the steps. And I think everyone should do that. If we all agree that layoffs are going to be more common, then financially we need to take certain steps so that when that happens, you have all the bandwidth of your time to actually focus on your emotions or your future plans or your new identity that you want to create.
I think before we move into that financial steps to get ready, how are you now today? I mean, it's 8 months since February. How are you coping? How are you feeling?
I feel like I'm in therapy right now. Initially, it was tough. Honestly, Alan, I can't lie to you. I want to tell you that, I'm very resilient. Anyone who goes through layoff, we sort of put this pressure on ourselves to just bounce back up and tell people we're fine, Even in our personal relationships, right? We go through a breakup, it's like, oh, it's over, his loss or her loss, and then I'll move on, right? But the first few months, it was really tough. Like I said, it's a huge part of my identity. Google is such a prestigious company, and growing up, everybody's like, oh my God, you work for Google. It's so convenient for me. If I tell in Chinese New Year or networking events, I just say, oh, I work for Google. I don't even need to fill in the blanks. People automatically fill in the blanks for me, right? So, oh, you must be doing this. Oh, I heard you got that. Oh, this new technology. So that was a big part of my identity, and it took a while to shed it off. The saying that I like to hold myself grounded is that sometimes in life, we don't jump, we get pushed. And now with retrospect, I say, okay, now, I'm building up my own YouTube channel. I'm starting my own business. I feel so alive. Every day I wake up, I'm excited to do what I do. I no longer have that, that feeling of like, on Sunday night, you're like, oh, tomorrow it all starts all over again. And then you just look forward to Friday. And then Friday, the whole cycle repeats all over again. I no longer have that feeling. In fact, I feel like it's a TGIM, thank God it's Monday, as opposed to thank God it's Friday, because you start all over again. So I think to all the people that are impacted by layoffs, eventually we'll get there. But the more you can mentally prepare yourself and financially prepare yourself, then the faster your recovery process can be.
I want to talk about stigma. So in the previous generation or a few decades ago, being laid off or retrenched was a bad thing. People would look at you and say, you're the problem. Right? I'm starting to sense that this is shifting in our time. People are recognizing that, it's really because of how capitalism works. It's about companies putting their profits in front of employees. And I think especially this round of layoffs, that becomes very clear, because we literally just heard the same companies say last year that they had no money and they had to start to look at letting go of people. And then these same companies, after doing that act, now come around and say we're investing billions of dollars in AI. Like, what happened to no budget? So it's really just a priority. So we're starting to really sense that this stigma is shifting. It's not just about the individual being not good, but it could be that the role becomes redundant because of a change in technology, a change in the industry, or as you say, clients stop spending as much. So it no longer justify having 10 people on that role versus just trimming it down to 3. How can folks who are still stuck in that old mindset break out of that?
From a recruiter's point of view, it's still there, believe it or not. I think, and I say this because my team, when I was working in talent acquisition, was guilty of that. They were like,
this person was laid off before,
yeah,
right? There's a black mark on the CV,
yes.
right? Yeah.
And it the one thing, I think that's a bias, 100%. It's a bias. And if I put myself in the shoes of the recruiter, they have hundreds of CVs that they get every single day. And if you have 10 of them coming in from Google from the same team, what do you do? As an example, right? I give you this example. I use Google as an example. If you tell them, they go like, oh yeah, but all these 10 have been laid off, or they must not be good, because they have to then focus on sieving out, right? It's a stat. Like, a recruiter takes 30 seconds to look at your CV. Bam, that's it. And then they have to decide very quickly, are you a fit for the role? Should they interview you or not? Because it's their time too. But that stigma is still there. It's still there from the view of the employer. And you know what? On top of that, even if you make it through the rounds, this person got laid off, they have no job. We should offer them the lowest of the range. Reality check. And it sucks. It hurts. Why? Because here I am trying to push the thinking, right? To change the mindset of managers who say like, hang on, that doesn't seem right to me. If we flip it onto you and would you like to be this person? But how would they know the range? You know, we pay better than everybody else out there. How do you know the range?
Sounds very familiar.
Right?
Sounds very familiar.
We're like, would you like to sell yourself short? Like, would you like if we sold you short on that? So you would rather pay the lowest part of the range versus then hiring this person what they're worth. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that there is a shift. You're right, there's a shift. But it's still there. And it's still prominent. And I would hope that anyone who's listening to this to please change your mindset on the stigma and remove the stigma altogether, and not shortchange anyone just because they've been laid off. Because it's not that they're bad people. Like, I've been on that end. Sometimes it's not that they're poor performers. They might not be poor performers for the business. They might just be one of the numbers that we needed to remove from the P&L. And that's it. They don't know that what's happened to them. And this grief that you've gone through, it's not just grief of why is it me? It's also the loss of what could have happened. And a lot of time they have no idea what hit them. It's the most painful thing in the corporate world, at least, because it's like, it's not you, it's me. But what happened? It's me. Why is it happening to me, right? Yeah.
Then you gain your income, you have your experience and everything. So when bad times come, you can, okay, finally I can take a break as well. So you don't go against that friction of 1,000 people applying for that one job. So that's how I retrospectively feel. And then because financially I put in some steps, now to me, I get the chance to take a step back and start my own thing. So I think I wish more people could feel that way. We always think of layoff as two stages. It's either you are fragile, means a layoff happens to you collapse, you got to pick yourself up again. you're financially destroyed, or you are resilient. That means a layoff happens to you, boom, okay, never mind, I got so much of savings, I got this other income stream, blah, blah, blah. But there could be a third stage, a third scenario, which is when a layoff happens to you, it's actually a positive thing. It doesn't need to just be a negative or a neutral. It could be a positive thing, which it gives you the opportunity to take a break, to regain your mental health, to pivot, so I think that's how I like to see it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Good
So it's
mindset
like
reframe. Yeah.
building during the good times, or like in the animal kingdom, right? Storing up all the fruits and nuts for the winter. We don't do that enough as humans. Nina, I want to ask you, because you were in a very senior HR role, APAC as well, and you handled quite a bit of layoffs in your team. How is the decision-making process like when it comes to determining who to lay off?
Why you pick me?
I'm sorry. It's not you, it's me.
It's a breakup, right? It is a breakup.
I will admit there has been, and I won't name any companies, there has been scenarios where it has been rational and there has been those which have been irrational. I'm going to talk about my own experience and then I'm going to share what I've observed around the market. So I think that's helpful to get some perspective. There have been times when companies have hired too quickly. And sometimes when you hire too quickly, you don't really have I wouldn't say the words are opportunity, the right conditions for that person, the people to integrate into the organization as quickly as well. So if you think of companies that scale too fast, the culture fabric gets torn. And then if you think of onboarding during COVID, sometimes you have to onboard someone remotely and you don't really get the opportunity to be on top of them or have a proper buddy system. And I think that was why, like, working in the office, I think is very, very crucial. And being close to people is very crucial to understand, at least, having the right culture, the right habits, the right systems, the right usage. So I do actually think that particularly during the pandemic period, a lot of people were being hired into positions without actually having a proper onboarding process. And sometimes you lay off a percentage of people, the performance actually is being taken into account under the guise of layoff. Or rather, you say it's a layoff, but actually it's under the guise of performance management out. So I think this is, in my experience, has been the case, whereas we looked at the poor performers and then it signaled it as we were reducing our footprint in certain places, when actually it's not true at all. And I can say this now because, I'm my own agent. But I think that there have been companies that have used this tactic, and I actually disagree with this. And if I put it in a perspective of a manager, sometimes you have to do what the company tells you to do. There's a time to speak up and be courageous and say, I disagree. But there are times when you have to disagree and commit. And that's like one of the most difficult things that you have to do in leadership, because even though your value systems might be completely different from the company's value systems, you have to do what's best and right for yourself and everybody around you, right? And say, I am going to disagree, but I'm going to commit anyway because it's them or me. And that's also what I've observed in other companies too, where they've had, in a way, the managers also had no choice, where it's a top-down directive.
And they're just trying to keep their job as well, right? Because
Exactly.
they are also feeling the same anxious
Exactly.
anxiety.
They're like, if I don't do it, then it's me on the line. How many managers can say, I'm not going to do it, and then they cut themselves off, or they risk them cutting themselves? They can't. They can't actually do it for whatever reasons they have. And it's not personal, it's just business. So that's the perspective that I think when you think of the reasons why, some is rational, but some is not so rational. Some is under the guise of layoff, but actually it's performance.
How often is salary an important factor? There's a lot of rumors around where they say it's because if you climb too fast, it's good that you negotiate for a higher pay, but sometimes then that puts you at a more detrimental role as well, because in times of economic hardship, the company, let's say if firing one guy can actually, who earns the equivalent of 5 people, it makes more sense to keep the 5 and get rid of that one.
Then
top
in that case, they
performer.
should fire the entire C-level, right? 'Cause they make the worst, right?
But the C-level are also the ones making the decision,
exactly.
right? So it's a
Yeah.
bit tough. Yeah. But for the non-C-level, the non-decision makers, in your experience, how often is it that the salary is a very big factor?
I'm going to say that it's not necessarily the salary, it's the value you bring to the table. Let me give you an example. When we had to look at who we needed to let go, we said, what is this role actually bringing us? What is the value of this person bringing us? And okay, let me give you an example. If someone's being paid 5,000 a month, this is the job scope, and they're exceeding the deliverables, I will keep that person because I'm squeezing every single dollar of this person. If someone's being paid the same amount, but not meeting the job scope and not giving me, or meeting the job scope like barely, okay, I could still keep them. If it's 5,000 and not meeting the job scope and not exceeding anything, why would I want to keep that person? Which is also why I think this thing around numbers, value, and we talked about performance, like why would I want to lay off somebody who is like if I think of the company who's one of my top A game player. Again, I'm not saying this to you as an example. If I think of the rational perspective of the company, rational. The irrational side of every organization is, and we've seen this, we've heard it, I've spoken to many HR teams about this, is let's just look at, who's costing us so much? Wow, so much. Okay. How much can we actually get out of this bag? Because we need to add this back to the P&L. Okay, this many people is irrational. Because at the end of the day, they're just numbers. I mean, the number of times that I've spoken to teams and managers, I don't know about you, but who are like, oh yeah, we are told that we just watch out for our email by 9 a.m. If by 9 a.m. these people are not on the list, you're good. Your team is safe. How do they choose these numbers? This is the irrational side of layoffs. And this is the part that I think when a company gets really, really, really big, it gets harder to manage. And it's very sad because I don't think that any one of us actually work for an organization and you tell us like, oh, we value you.
Yeah, we're family.
We are family.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we are family. Well, that's another episode altogether.
That's another Wise and Shine episode. We'll put it in the comments below.
Yeah, we are family. We deeply care. But don't tell us this story. Don't tell us that we're family. Don't trick us into believing that we are. Because this breakup is actually really, really painful, and it's more painful because you tell us that over emotional blackmail because we are family. Hey, we are family means you can work OT. Yeah, I don't have to pay you extra, right? Because you're family. And then because we are family, I'm sorry, but it's not working out. It hurts. This is I think the more emotional pain that comes with it, and I'm really sorry that.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm, but even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below, let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show.
So earlier you talked about compassion, Nina. How then would be a good compassionate way for the layoff to actually happen? And not sure whether it was done compassionately for you, Shao.
There is no real good way. Bad news is bad news. I think the way is how do you deliver news and how exactly you make it worthwhile, right? If like the divorce, you're like, look, it's not working out anymore, as an example, right? It's not working out anymore. Not saying that that's the narrative that was saying, but if in a divorce, like, I want a divorce, it's not working out anymore, let's make this as clean as possible, whatever. That's in the best possible way. In a layoff, if you're firing one person, it's much easier to fire one person than it is to fire 10% of the workforce. Because exactly what you said, why not me? Why am I here? Why am I left behind? There's so many implications to that. So I'm going to take a step back of how we did it. Prepared, script, and I remember I went off script. I went off script because the script was due to economic downturn, this is the decision we have to make. I actually told HR, my partner, I said, I'm going to be alone with this person in the room. And I said, look, here I have something really bad to share with you, like really bad news to share with you. And I want you to know that I've done the best I can to get you the best package. But you know that the economy is not doing very well. And this is what we have to do. Of course, you can sense when HR is in the room, when you have someone else 2 against 1, I find that incredibly intimidating. I don't need a company shield to be around, I want to be able to connect with the heart. And I said, look, there's a reason why I'm here alone with you, because I want you to know I've got your back. And this is the package that's being given to me. And I want you to know that I fought for as much as I could. And this is the final offer. But I was there in the room, making sure that we can offer you as a team, as a business. It sounds like a take it or leave it situation, but I promise you, if I could do more, I would. And I give them some space to talk, because they're not going to talk to me with HR in the room or someone else in the room. They're going to talk to me as like, Nina, why? How come? Why me? And by that time, there are no more reasons. No matter what I say, it's just going to be used against me at some point. All I said, I just let them
Vent.
vent.
Scream.
Exactly. The hardest thing is when you just say with a HR and 2 against 1 with a company shield or lawyer and just go, hey, that's it. That is inhumane.
Maybe I can add on in terms of compassion. My personal experience, Ellen, when you said earlier, you try your best to help people who are affected. You use your own network as well. Something I've learned throughout this whole process that the person that was doing it, like what Nina was describing, is also human. They also don't enjoy doing it. I don't think anyone wakes up today, okay, I'm going to lay off 10%. I feel like a power play or anything like that. So what I realized is that I saw compassion come from many, many areas. And funnily, it came from places that I didn't expect. So the moment people found out that I was laid off, people that I never spoken to or not never, but haven't been speaking to for the last 2-3 years suddenly came up to me, dropped me a message and say, hey, give me your CV right now. I'll do whatever I can and everything. And I like to think that, it's because, I'm so capable and I built such a good reputation. But I haven't been working for them for like 2-3 years. So I feel that these people, they must have went through something like that. So that when they see it happen to other people, and if they are in the capacity to hire, to help out, these people all started reaching out as well. And initially, I was a bit annoyed and upset with the people that I thought I could rely on. They couldn't rely on, which is basically the people who just laid me off. But then retrospectively, I calmed down and realized if they could, they would. But because they were my managers, they were my leaders, but because they now have to shrink the entire team, there's no way they could have helped me. So sometimes, if you open up, you realize that compassion comes from everywhere. And Nina and I actually, when I was laid off, I actually spoke to her as well. And she helped me sort of rationalize the whole process as well. So, your network actually is there for you, even though you think that, there's a stigma, I'm screwed right now, I'm down on my luck, that if the more you speak about it, the more you talk about it, and if you don't hide it and you don't feel like, I'm a loser for it, people are there to help.
Hey, don't forget, we also worked together on my YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yes, you see, and after when he bounced back, he did the entrepreneur. And he started his entrepreneur journey as he bounced back. It was also
It was You're right.
We did
it at the same time, about the same time, right?
Exactly. And it's also, and that's also like another way that you don't expect to have help coming from, it's like, what does help mean to you? You might just need a friend to listen to vent. You might need your first client. You might need, as you're thinking about moving in a different direction, or you might just need a nudge, right? You said like you don't jump, you push, you get pushed, right? And exactly that, a lot of the times, I don't know about you, but every single time I find like something that, why did this happen to me? And when we start to absorb like what's exactly happened, and when we finally take a step back and go like, oh, hang on, the people I thought I could rely on were, you really see their true colors as well, like who really comes through for you and in what form. And sometimes it's also like, wow, I thought you were my friend. Talk to me,
And that adds on to the emotional side as well, because you build up all this relationship with people that you think that they're going to have your back. And then when things go like this, it inevitably, earlier I mentioned, financially is one aspect, but emotionally, like, hey, these are the people that you went to happy hour with, you went to, company retreats with. And then when it comes down to telling you that news, it was like so black and white, right? It's almost like, hey, we were just both wasted just 2 months ago. We were having a great time, right? Why are you talking to me as if like I'm a patient in a hospital? Yeah.
I think it's also probably these people don't know how to deal with it. So for them, it's just, I'll just put that front. So probably more training needs to be done on that front for managers and leaders. And I think we've been talking about receiving that news and how we're feeling and what we do. I'm curious also to know that how do you plan for the next step? This is even before preparing for that news, right? Now that it has happened, how do you know that the next thing that you move into is not on a rebound, if you use the relationship analogy? And that next thing, is it also going to be a case of, let's go with the flow, see which door opens, I'll go, or is it taking a sabbatical 6 months, 1 year, really to figure out, have that clarity on what is that next step? And for yourself, it came quite quickly, right? So how do you know whether it's a rebound or it's not a rebound? Maybe Nina, you can share a bit more about that.
I think in general, whether you've been fired, whether you've been laid off, or whether you're leaving a company without a job, yes, of course, in every way you should be prepared for plan B, right? In every way. But not everyone has preparation for plan B. So actually with a lot of my clients, today they're a bit lost, right? And they're all kind of preparing for plan B, but some of them don't have the plan B, even though they've been laid off or being let go from their job or fired. And I always say, let's take a moment and step back. Like, what is your current reality? Like, what is currently available to you? What do you want to do? Look at your finances. And I think the finances piece is so important because we don't work for nothing, right? We give our time away for money, right? So, and if we're going to be spending all our time with, doing something, then we want to make sure that we've got enough savings or investments that are available to us to help us define what the next step would be. Now, that's one. That's the logistical aspect. Then the second is, do you need time to grieve? Because this grief thing, I think that exactly what we talked about earlier, bounce back, how quickly, what time frame should we give ourselves? Some of us get hit harder than us and don't have time to grieve. Some of us have to get on the train as quickly as possible, send 10 CVs a day, apply to 300 jobs, and just move on. Some of us need more time than that, right? And so that's the second piece. Is like, okay, you have your current reality of logistics because that's important, administration, But then also it's like emotionally, what's going through your body at this stage? Like what's the driving force? Is it the gut, the heart, or the head? And a lot of the time, people start thinking from here without accessing here and without going with the instinct. And so that's kind of like where my experience has lied. And so we go through an exercise of, okay, what is then the ideal scenario? If you have plan A, plan B, plan C, what should that look like? And how do we then move forward with an action step, right? So that's kind of my approach to it. What about you?
Similar, it depends really on which stage of life you're at and your objectives. We tend to say things like, we put a negative connotation to the word rebound, right? Like, oh, this is a rebound relationship and everything. But like similar to Nina's, if you are in a situation where you just need to pay your bills, then going to a rebound career or whatever that's available makes absolute sense because that's your situation that alleviates most of the stress away. So it really depends on where we are at and financially how you are. If you are set financially or at least you have some buffer, then you can afford yourself to reevaluate, hey, do I want to pivot? Do I want to try something new? Or do I want to do something that is similar to my past, but maybe with a different angle, a different employer, a different type of culture? Maybe I used to work in SME, now I'll try NNC or vice versa, or local company, foreign company. You can do that. One thing I want to also highlight throughout this process is I think prevention is better than cure. That's something I've learned. So, of course, once you get laid off, you do a lot of remedy work. That's inevitable. But if you can prepare for it, and I noticed how cognitively I wasn't thinking correctly. And I see that happening with a lot of us, which is that during good times, layoffs risk is the lowest, right? But that is a time where we are supposed to make full use of the opportunity. But during good times, I had this mentality of, oh, finally the good times are here. I'm going to relax, right? Then when the bad times come, if you are financially set or you're in a good space, then you can, finally relax during bad times. Because during bad times, if you push, you may not get the opportunity as well, right? But yet, during bad times, what do? We panic and we work extra hard. So I realized if we can just shift that sort of order where good times, you take full use of that opportunity. You want to get promoted or there's a job placement, there is a rotation, everything, you take full use of that.
So I guess we can all agree that even if the employee is doing everything that they can, hitting their targets, there is still always a chance that the layoff could happen because it's irrational and no one really knows for sure. So with that being said, how can we then better prepare for a layoff before it happens?
The way I think about it is 369. So 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. If today, hypothetically, you're being laid off, ask yourself, realistically, how long do you think you're going to take to find another job? 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. If it's going to take you 9 months, great. That means that you have the right skills. You just need to go out there and, go through that process of interviewing, going through all of that. So 9 months. If it's going to take you a bit shorter, 6 months, what does that mean? It means that you not only have the right skills, but you have the right network. It means you can sort of take a shortcut and you can bypass all the actual formal interviews. And I think Nina can attest to it. When you actually apply online, that whole process, that probability is like as good as you entering like Harvard or NASA or something like that, right? Like if you manually apply, right? So it's going to take time. So if you have a strong network, it sort of shrinks it down. No, but if you can find a job within 3 months, that means that you not only have the right skills and the right network, You have a strong reputation. That means that people find out that, hey, Shao, you got laid off. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Do you want to join my team? And honestly, that's what happened to me. Very fortunate, those people that I told you that I've never spoken to as well. One of the VP, so in the tech industry, like VPs is like very, very high, like reporting directly to CEO. He took my CV and said that he spread it around. And then eventually he found me a role and everything. So that's how I would see it, 369. And wherever you feel that you're at there and you want it to be faster, that gap, that is the gap that you need to work on. So do you work on your skills? Do you work on your network? Or do you work on your reputation? If it takes more than 9 months, then okay, you either do not have the right skills, which means that you have to leverage whatever public resources to reskill yourself.
And performance is important. It is the basic. Even if you have you over deliver, people know you. Yes, it's part of your reputation. It's not the only thing. And that's where that drives the image. The image is like, oh, I'm credible, I'm trustworthy. Meaning that if someone needs to get this done, oh, Dawn is the person. Oh, so-and-so needs to get Shao is the person. Who should I speak to? Alex is this, he's known for XYZ. That's what you're known for. It's the image that people have it. The third one is exposure. And that exposure is where you're networking, who knows you and who knows you. In this world today, where there's so much noise out there, back to personal branding, if you're not putting yourself out there, it's going to be very hard. So one of the things that I'm trying to solve as well with Elleuminate and why it's a coaching platform for women is because women are very intimidated to network outside. And so I take them through group cohorts, or I take them through an internal community that is gated, that is safe, that is private, where they can actually really share about, hey, I'm actually looking for this type of job. And where can I, how can I, what do I do? Who do you know? Can someone help me? And because it's through cohorts, because it's a community, because it's a course on actually helping career comeback, women who've taken time off to take care of family, to take care of their personal lives, whatever that they need. They've taken time. Women who've been laid off, women who are looking for how to navigate their careers. It's in a course called Aspire. Because of that, the collective power of this group community coaching for women is actually help them become more vulnerable and open to each other. And this is where, we talk about, I'm an introvert. You can still network online. The accessibility now, as long as you have a phone, as long as you have a laptop, you have an internet connection, anything is possible. I feel like it's almost like you don't really have much of an excuse anymore. And, back to this, I think it's just, you have to really take an initiative. I don't think, even though you're an introvert, it doesn't mean you have to. I understand like some very, very anxious introverts. I've seen them in some of my workshops, and they just sit there. They don't actually talk. They don't contribute, but they find one person that they can talk to. And they just stick to that person all night. And it's okay. It's just having the courage to put yourself out there, even a little bit. It's like a step, but it's a tiny step. And it's not impossible. I think together we tie in this very nicely. It's like, you need to work hard. You need to over-exceed expectations, but you also need to like develop your personal brand in some way. It doesn't have to be too out there.
I think culturally it's difficult though to this, like we have all the tools and everything, but culturally it's still like earlier the point about like just keep quiet, do your work, it's still ingrained as well. And the way I rationalize that, besides having all the tools and resources to do that, is think of the phone in your pocket right now. Dawn, can I just do a little experiment with you? What phone are you using right now?
Oppo.
Oppo, okay. Why did you choose that phone?
Why? Because I think China technology is amazing, but Huawei is blocked.
Okay. Was it the cheapest phone you can find?
No.
Was it the most, the camera wise, is it the best out there? No, right? But you somehow chose this phone because Oppo as a brand speaks to you. So that's how we rationalize things. Like you could be the hardest worker in the room, but yet if you decide to not buy that mobile phone and buy Oppo, even though Oppo, it may not be the cheapest, may not have the highest functions, but because the brand is strong to you, if you subscribe to that, then you should apply it to your own career as well. How do you build up your own branding? And that is the differentiator, to say that like, hey, I may not be the hardest worker in the room, but people know me for certain skill sets, and that can elevate your career and bring you to places, as opposed to like just keep working harder and harder as well.
I couldn't agree with this more. You suddenly reminded me of a thought. In the last 20 years, I've never applied for a job. It's always someone was always knocking on my door. Hey, I came across your profile, so-and-so talked about you. And it's not like I'm the loudest out there either. I'm not always on panels. I'm not always on this. But yeah, it's exactly that. It's one of those things where your work just speaks for itself. You'll get known in the industry. You'll get known based on your skill set. You'll get known based on credibility and trust. And someone out there will advocate as long as you put in the good work.
Great points. Great points, right? For all of you listening in, PIE as well as the 369.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I think so. If we could wrap up with one takeaway for everyone, I think, of course, as a financial blogger, I really believe wholeheartedly in what you said. Stock up during the good times and be prepared so that when the bad times come, you already have like that cash ready to see you through and to build up all that goodwill and network before the layoffs happen. Because it's true, I didn't think of it in that way, but when you use the numbers to justify, I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because when the bad times come, there's like 1,000 people knocking on the door. But when the good times are around, no one bothers to do that. And doing it is what also makes you stand out and build that reputation and exposure that we talk about. So yeah, I think that was the biggest takeaway from me. Yourself, Alex?
For me, it's about the pie and that 60%. So I didn't know that it was such a huge percentage. 10% performance, 30% image, and 60% the exposure. I guess for all of you out there, that's something that you really got to start doing. I think I'm doing a fairly decent job. So
You've started to do more?
yes, I started to do more. So, but thankfully I'm self-employed, so that's okay.
Good exposure, okay?
Good exposure.
Yeah, we're all in front of a camera right now. So,
Shao, what about you?
in terms of the overall takeaway, I think all of us are talking about layoffs for a reason. It is inevitably going to hit you, and if you want to continue to think that it may not happen to you and it's purely out of luck, it's not going to be the case, right? So the more we talk about it, the more we plan for it. How can you make layoffs actually? It has always been a negative thing in your track record. How can it be a positive thing? How can it be like, okay, I'm laid off. Okay, thank you. You don't want me. I got 10 other options. Like, how can you put yourself in that situation where the roles are reversed or the tables are turned? And you could do it during good times and you could do it before the layoff. And if you do that, I think a lot of people will not only be much more free, much more relief, but I think they will have meaningful careers and meaningful use of their time as well.
For me, I think this is a really tough one because I feel like I've been on the other side more than I've been on your side. And actually, I think the biggest thing I'm going to say is that when you're being laid off, it can feel like the whole world is coming crashing down. But if Shao has shown me anything, is that there's always a positive spin and it's okay. It might feel like that at that point in time, and you will need to go through the 7 stages of grief, but it's okay. There's always going to be someone who will catch you at the end of the day. And if you can't catch that, at least your values will catch you. And the other thing that really came to me as we were talking, and we were talking about that this whole session, was we think of layoffs as such a bad thing, but it's really not that bad. And I want to appeal to like recruiters and HR and managers out there to please remove this stigma that just because someone's been laid off, oh yeah, they must be poor performance. I want to say that it's not true. I want to challenge your thinking and have all of you really think differently and especially not shortchange them on what they're actually worth. So that's kind of like the message I want to land. And hopefully will inspire some change in the way we think about people who've been laid off, and that there's always going to be at the end of the rainbow, pot of gold.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
so that brings us to an end for today's episode. If you know of anyone who might benefit from this, please send this episode their way. Or if your company has been going through and you spot some of those warning signs that Shao was talking about earlier, send this to all your colleagues so everyone is prepared together. And if you'd like to see future episodes on this topic on Wise and Shine, just drop us a note in the comments. If not, we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.